Hey, this is Dave. I gotta show you a cool thing. Orbit has the B-Hyve faucet hose timer. It's got a pair of AA batteries right here. Connects to your faucet out to your garden line. So here's maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I have the kit. It is the garden box drip watering kit. Comes with all that stuff. You lay it out like a box on your garden box, and then you put in your drip lines in between it. So, for your soaker hose. So this is this awesome kit. Here we go. We've got the faucet timer. You can do the manual timer as well. 1/2-inch distribution tubing. That's this. Right, just a regular black 1/2-inch. Then you got your 1/4-inch soaker, 50 feet of that as well, 50 feet of each of them. You got these reusable drip lock elbows. There's 4 of them. You got a single T. You got 20 self-piercing couplings to get the. I'll show you that in a minute. You got a cutter, and then you got a 3-in-1 drip lock adapter. I have to show you something about this quick. Here's the piece, right? So that is actually super cool. I'll show you why. This 3-in-1 is a filter and a pressure reducer, and it's releasable. So let me put you here and check out a couple of these things that are going on. So first off, you're going to end up here. Let's do that. You got this supply tube, right? No, there's nothing exciting. It's just a supply tube. And then you can see, this is the worst one. I did this a half a dozen or a dozen times to see how bad it would get. When you reuse these couplings, that's normal. And this is super duper torn up. So let's say, worst case scenario, you cut that off. This is Orbit's cutter that comes with it, by the way. You got a blade, spring, and some nice overmolded handles. This is a decent tool. My 6-year-old son was using it and checking things out, and he could cut with it. Let's say you've got an elbow and you're like, I want to switch things up. Well, good news, you got these little ears. See those little spikes inside? Go ahead and put your supply line on, and maybe that's how you run your garden this year, but next year you're going to change it up a little bit. So grab your ears and then just twist it out. And that one you could reuse. I'd probably cut it off anyways, but you could reuse that. You can see how deep it went. Went all the way up to the stop in here. That's going to be a great fitting. But you can reuse this. That's a big deal. There's a different brand of fittings. They're the only ones that make a particular manifold fitting. I needed 8 hose fittings, to go into these watering. It's a pull-in watering system. Anyways, I had to use a different brand, and they are push only. There's no tabs on it, so you push it in. It's a one-time use. Well, 2 of them were bad from the factory out of the 8. And I ended up having to replace all 8 because you can't just take the hose out, and the gap was just too small for a coupler. So that is a neat thing. This has it as well. You can, take that out, put it back in. It's so easy to use, in fact, that my son took a scrap piece yesterday. He's 6, and put it on this. Put an elbow on the other end, and then went and put it on the hose that's on the other side of the house and started spraying everybody, and made a water slide out of our slide in the backyard. So it's super easy to use. My 6-year-old, who doesn't do any of this, can use it. This is obviously a reusable connector. Let me show you how this works. This is cool. So that is the self-piercing here. Self-piercing coupling, and the 1/4-inch goes where my finger are. This goes in the 1/2-inch, and you can see it locks on, right? So let's just set one up from the beginning. I don't know if this will even come off. It shouldn't. So let's start over. Take my cutter. I just want to show you how easy all this stuff is to use. So let's say you have your watering system laid out. You put this right over the outside. See how that little piercing piece is right there? You're just going to push it in. I actually put mine in while the water was running through the system. No big deal. So there it is. It's in your supply line. That's all it takes. Clip, clip, clip. It hugs that tubing. It's going to keep it nice and supported. You take your drip hose or soaker hose and then just shove it on. And that's it. That's all there is. Hooking up this system is a breeze. Absolute breeze. This soaker hose, I want to show you this label. I have a lot left of it right now. I haven't used the whole system yet. But it is super porous. So it'll just bubble up. We've got a lot of water pressure on here, and it just bubbles up and emits water. You can cover it with mulch. You're not going to clog all the holes. I mean, there's just no way you could clog all the holes here. Cover it with mulch so you don't lose any water, and you've got a wicked efficient, super duper efficient garden watering system. So now I've got an app on my phone. There's a little USB dongle thing inside my house. Let me show you what it looks like. Yeah, that's the closest I can get. It's this. So that's a USB thing. It fits into a wall wart that plugs in. So it's actually lives. The other side of this wall is our master bathroom, and past that is our bedroom. And under the bed is a multi-plug adapter thing. And so the hub for this is, well, that way about 15 feet. Living under the bed, we never need to touch it once it's set up, and so it controls this. It's a big deal for me because let me show you what we're working with. I've got this side, well, it's not good, but I've got a side yard, and there's not a single bit of power on the wall. And then we've got this garden that's going, and then we're digging in right there. Some big flowers, and we're going to make an arch trellis, kind of thing, and grow, hopefully luffa, if I can get some seeds. I need to put them in right now. So when I renovated the house, we made this side yard usable. I put a hose bib there, and then I put a stub out for some traditional valves. Valves are not cheap. They're not expensive, but you got to buy a bunch, and then you have to drop power to them. And so if you're going to have an electrician drop power down your wall, that's a lot of money. This is already powered, and these AA batteries, if they're anything like the timer, they last forever. So here's a cool thing about this faucet timer. I don't need power. I can actually water from the garden. I'll show you that in a minute, where I could put this anywhere, right? As long as it's within 100 feet of its little hub, no big deal. It's also Bluetooth controllable on my phone. There's this button on the end. Push and hold it for 3 seconds. 2, 3. And there it is. Got a little drip. I'll fix that. Anyways, so now we're going through our supply tubing. And there it is. There's a soaker hose. You can see it just spraying away. These are Cosmos. They're volunteers from another part of our garden, so we moved them over here. We've got some chamomile that we're trying to sprout in here. We've been amending the soil. And I thought it was crazy, but I tried it. I pierced the other end too to make this a loop, and you can see we've got really nice flow. Before, when I just had a stopper on that end right there, instead of being pierced, it got water all the way down, but it was at such a different rate. So I wanted water all over here. So here's another little Cosmo going, but you can see it's getting nice water, right? The first foot or two is really the best. And then if you throw mulch over that, once seedlings get going, I can throw mulch over the whole thing. I won't waste a lick of water. No water at all wasted. So I have these little stub ups that aren't connected anywhere yet. The line runs all the way back to where we were. It's a really old line. It's a 40-year-old line in the yard. But it doesn't leak up to that point. I tested it earlier, but I disconnected it. Well, next time I'm under the ground there, I'll just reconnect it. I can put this timer right there, and let's just start the supply line here, and I can have it going left and right on this one timer. Here is the soaker hose again. More than we need. You can see that it's producing more than we need even. And I mean, that's just a clever solution. So we got some little seedlings coming up. Right? Oh, that's a little tiny guy. So, anyways, that's how we're using this system. And then with these, what I want to do is where's a more obvious spot? Oh, it just turned off. I'm like, where did the water go? Anyways, these bubblers, I like them a lot. You know, and they just spritz. Let's turn this back on. I have it set that if I manually water, I just want it to go for 2 minutes, because my kids will turn this on a dozen times. And all right, there we go. So we're watering again. This is why my kids love it. I put on a Mr. fan, you know, little Mr. They can play with it. So, anyways, so these bubblers, I'm a big fan, right? But sometimes when you adjust them, so my kids mess with them, and it doesn't take much to turn them off to nothing. Do you see how that's just gone? And then a little bit, you know, a quarter turn, you're where you need to be, and then it's really easy to get too much water. So what I'm going to do is replace the bubbler with soaker hose. So I'll move my mulch out of the way. I'm going to layer my ring of soaker hose. I don't know what you can see here, right there. And then I'm going to put mulch over it. And so I wouldn't mulch over a bubbler, because it's really easy to clog those holes, right? But I'm going to give me a break. Mulch over this? Of course. Like, that's no big deal. So once we get these little seedlings going and get it up a bit, wow, there's a nice looking butterfly. We'll just mulch over, and we will have all this water. See that it's kind of spraying out, you know, kind of crazy. We're not going to lose that at all, because there'll just be mulch over it. And I'll put 6 or 8 inches, 10 inches of mulch. I have no problem with that. Mulch is cheap, breaks down to soil. And this is our first time gardening in this little spot. This whole side yard has never had any love. It's so we're trying to get that soil back. Anyways, that is Orbit's. The B-Hyve is a winner. The soaker hose is a total winner. I mean, oh, here we go, another little guy. See him? Oh, water's off. So he's had his coffee this morning, eh? Well, thanks for tuning in. You know, like I said, there's actually PVC that's, you know, run from the front yard up to here, and then right about there, I killed the connection, because before the block wall went in is when the block wall destroyed the PVC that goes around this yard that the original owner put in. Anyways, I decided to leave mine above ground instead of trenching in, because trenching's hard and it takes a lot of work. But really, the big thing is, I don't know where I'm going to put stuff. And with 4 young kids, I mean, our oldest is 8, right? And so they plant all kinds of stuff. And they say, hey, can we put some water on it? Well, I can put water anywhere along this line, right? And so, you know, this was their idea. They wanted to grow something special for Mom, and we thought chamomile would be kind of fun. And then over here, we just buried some food scraps, both these places, to try to amend the soil, in-ground composting. And so when we plant this is where I'd like to put my Leffa vine. When we plant that, I'm just going to put one of those self-piercing needles. I'm going to do exactly what I did over here. I'm just going to cut off a bit of soaker hose. I'll put a plug on the end. Orbit has those. And then I'm going to water it. And once things get going, I'm going to dump a whole bunch of mulch on it. To keep the water and 0 water loss out here in the desert. That's a big deal. So I kind of like the idea of an exposed system. I might hate it one day. I might not like it. But I don't want to show you the brand. But this is the kind of fittings that I'm used to, that are just push in only. And the seam on this broke. Let's see if this one's still spraying. This is the one I was able to, you know, repair. This is you can see all the corrosion in just in a couple months. So this is the seam's out. So this is not an Orbit connection. It's the only one I could find that had a male hose end and was a T. So I had to make a manifold. We won these at auction. Gosh, this is a long video. Okay, so anyways, thanks for joining me. Orbit's equipment's nice. Their B-Hyve is awesome. I love that timer. And with the app, I can have, let's say I don't want to put in water here, but I do want to end up using you know, a valve or a hose to water my lawn. I got a, you know, big lawn and 2 sprinklers and all that will help it. And I could have multiple timers interact with my phone, and it makes everything smart. And so for less than the cost of dropping an electric line and buying the valves for an in-ground system that was traditional trenched in, for way less than the cost of that, I can put 3 or 4 of these on and water front and backyards in the garden. Easy. Also, if you're a container gardener person, I wish I could take you there. It's just a long walk. Anyways, we have a front courtyard that's all concrete, and we got a bunch of pots. And I ran conduit underneath like that, but you know, gray. I ran conduit underneath the slab before I poured it into each corner. Well, I'm going to get another one of these and put this on, come out here, and then I'm going to have a T, use the T that's included, and then I'm going to push this hose down my conduit that goes under the slab, kind of like throwing that hose into this PVC, right? I'll go down, and it'll come up at the corner of my patio, so it, you know, say it goes underground, and it'll come up over here, and then Orbit makes a manifold, an 8-port manifold that you can control drip lines, and I'll just go out to different plants. So that corner will be watered, and then let's say this is the other corner, I'll push another line there, and it'll all run off of this smart timer. So all of a sudden, container gardener folks, you are really well served by Orbit. Thanks for joining us. Hope I'd really like to see how you implement it. So if you've got a B-Hyve running your garden, would you post a link to your video or maybe a photo in the comments below? I'd really like to see what you're doing with this, and I'm a huge fan and like to see what you're doing. Whenever we figure out new ways to do things, or maybe a solution nobody's thought of before, it helps the entire community. So, hey, happy gardening, happy watering. Orbit, thanks for the B-Hyve. This is a good piece of equipment for me.